Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode. In today's episode, in Team Season Preview 21 out of 32, I was joined by Jacksonville Jaguars fan Lee White as we preview the team's upcoming season. Lee discusses the off-season changes.
I'll be honest, the biggest part of our off-season is the change in leadership.
Lee also gives his take on the team trading up to draft Travis Hunter.
It felt like such an alien, even watching it back, it felt like a really alien move for the Jaguars to make because we don't do stuff like that.
And Lee predicts the team's overall record in our win, loss or tie segment. Hope you all enjoy. Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast for another team's season preview. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, and the team today we are focusing on is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And with me, I've got a returning guest. He is our resident Jaguars fan. Back with us today is Lee White, otherwise known as Brit Jag. Lee, how are things? How have you been?
Really good, thank you. Glad to be back. It's kind of an annual thing now, us getting together and predicting the season. Hopefully my predictions go a little bit better than they did last year. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we just had our last episode, which was the Los Angeles Chargers, where Lee went for a 7-win season and ended up winning 11 games. And there's been other teams who've had in the past, like the Browns, which I always tend to use an example. And I feel bad for Dan because I always use his example. And we could even look back at the Niners. Theirs is to come. Now, I don't know what Ollie predicted, but I'm sure Ollie didn't predict 6 wins. So there's been a few seasons where, so a few episodes what we've done where we look back, and there has been some real contrast of our predictions, either good or bad.
Yeah, I feel like the Jags are definitely a hard one to predict because you can never tell what's coming with them.
Yeah, they are like a weird sort of team in terms of, you've had 3 conference championship games appearances, if I'm right in saying that. But yet you've got one of the worst, I think, winning percentages in the league, probably because you've, or maybe it's one of the least amount of games won. But I think because you're a younger franchise, that's bound to happen. But it's one of the few teams, of course, that hasn't ever made a Super Bowl. There's the Browns, the Texans, the Jags, and there's one more: Texans, Jags, Panthers, and the Browns. So yeah, you're one of 4 teams who hasn't yet made a Super Bowl. So you'll be hoping that one day that turns around. Whether you think it's this season, I don't think you would, but you never know. I'm not sure what's in your brain thinking of the season, but one day, I think we can all say as fans, hopefully one day.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, let's head into the ins and outs of the offseason, including re-signings. So the main ins that include free agency and re-signings include the likes of Patrick McCarry, Jordan Lewis, Robert Hainsey, De'Ami Brown, Hunter Long, Nick Mullins, Emmanuel Ogba, as well as Quinton Morris. And the main outs include the likes of Evan Engram, Andre Sisco, Mac Jones, Josh Reynolds, Ronald Darby, Devin Duvernay, Josiah DeGuara, as well as Caleb Johnson. And in the draft, you took in total 10 players, and the first we've taken were Travis Hunter, the main headline draft pick, 2nd overall, as well as Caleb Branshaw and also Riot Milan. Also, you took the likes of Bashal Tutin, Jack Kaiser, Jalen McLeod, Rayan Lane III, Jonah Mulheim, and also Len Quinn Allen. It's actually 9 picks, not 10. Apologies. Overall for you, Lee, your take on the offseason as a whole.
So I'll be honest, the biggest part of our offseason is the change in leadership and coaching. Obviously, we've got a new GM, James Gladstone, and new head coach, Liam Cohen. And I think those changes far outweigh kind of any of the sides. I don't really feel like, obviously I'll get onto the draft in a minute, but the free agency signings especially, I don't feel like any of them really kind of lit a fuse of any real excitement. I'm excited to see Brown. I think he's a good addition, but I think the change in leadership is the biggest thing. There's been rumours of kind of players not being happy behind the scenes and there being issues in the locker room. Obviously, these are all rumours, and it's very hard to kind of ever get definitive answers on these things. But I was very, very surprised to lose Evan Ingram, if I'm honest. That was the big shock for me. He's been a really good player for us. He's been a top level tight end. I'm not sure where he ranked in regards to the leagues, but I think he was definitely up there both the last 2 seasons, even despite injury. So that was a big shock. It's a shame to see Christian Kirk go, because again, he was another contributor, big contributor on our kind of back-to-back winning seasons previous to that. So it's a shame, but obviously these things, the NFL especially, even more so than other sports, is very transactional, and players kind of come and go very quickly.
Yeah, it's part of the business, isn't it? It is part of the business. I mean, Emmanuel Ogbah has been with the Dolphins, released by the Dolphins, brought back by the Dolphins, and released again, and now he's in the Jags. So he's an example of one of many NFL players who seem to, change teams more than some people change their underwear in a week. It's a crazy thing. It's not like sometimes you're going from London to Manchester, or you're going from Birmingham to Brighton. I mean, these are long flights. I mean, you could be sent from, let's say, Seattle one year, or even mid-season, and next week you're being sent to New York. It's some of these moves are brutal, and then you got to think about not just the move in terms of from an NFL point of view, but in terms of if this person's got a family, his kids, having to drag the whole family from Seattle to New York, or from Boston to Vegas, or from Minnesota to LA. These aren't exactly quick trips you can make, and I think that is the brutal business of it. Is that you can be even like go back to I can't think of the player who got cut a day before the Patriots Super Bowl. I can't think of the player they cut. It was, I think, is when they lost the Giants. One of the 2 times they lost them. I got to think of a player who was cut the day before the Super Bowl, which, again, that's probably the biggest example you can find of NFL being a business.
Well, yeah, I think another example was last year when we were in London. Roy Robertson Harris got traded while we were in London, so he had to fly back to Jacksonville, collect his kind of belongings, and then carried on. My mind's blanking. I can't remember who he got traded to, but he literally had to leave London, go back to Jacksonville, and then move on again to where he was going. And it's like in the space of a week, like he had played the one game, and we were still over here, and it was quite a strange timing on that one. But again, there was rumours that he was potentially one of the issues in the locker room. So.
Yeah, I mean, looking at now, he did go to the Seahawks, and then he's released just a few months into, joined in October, was released in March, and then now he's with the Giants. So his base of 6 months, he's gone from playing his home being in Jacksonville, he goes to London, gets cut, goes back to Jacksonville, flies to Seattle, which is a whole different end of the country. And then, this is what I was saying before about going from Seattle to New York. He's literally doing that. Within 6 days, he's moved from Seattle to New York and signed a deal there, which the reference is a 2-year, $10 million deal. But moving on to the rest of the offseason, the draft must have really excited you. I mean, having the 5th overall pick originally, and then you get that notification on the draft coverage that there's been a trade, and then next thing you know, you see the thing change from being the Browns on the clock to the Jags being on the clock, and then you go and take Travis Hunter. Don't know whether you watched it lively, but that must have really brought you some excitement when that happened.
So the draft weekend itself, I was actually in Lanzarote, so it made it quite difficult to watch. And the Travis Hunter, so I didn't actually watch it live. I was watching it back, but it felt like such an alien. Even watching it back, it felt like a really alien move for the Jaguars to make, because we don't do stuff like that, like aggressive moves. And I think that's another, as I mentioned earlier, about the new kind of I suppose, the leadership and the coaching kind of mentality has really shifted, because that's not something, if anything, in the past we've been overly cautious and we traded back and tried to accrue picks and just kind of going for it. It was a real turn up for the books. And I think we've got a hell of a player. I think potentially maybe the top player in the draft. And I'm really excited to see what he brings, because everything that I'm hearing so far is that everything kind of out of camp and is positive, and it does look like he's going to kind of play both sides. So that's exciting as well, because obviously that's not something we see very much at all in the NFL. So that'll be intriguing to see how that's managed and to see how he can contribute on both sides.
Just want to apologise if anyone heard that background noise just then. That's kind of the price you get from recording a podcast with your window open, is you get noises like like someone beeping their horn during the live recording. I mean, Travis Hunter is, I think, kind of going into draft, it was seen as him, Abdul Carter, and Ashton Genty were sort of the three main, seen as the three biggest talents going into the draft. And I think Shadir Sanders ended up being the biggest talked name in that whole draft process. But I think certainly I'm not a college watcher, but from everything I've read and heard from draft experts and college experts and football fans in general, it does seem like those were the three that were seen as the top prospects. I think Cam Ward was the best quarterback prospect, but probably wasn't in the top 5 best players prospects in the draft. So I think, we did a mock draft and not one person had the Jags taking him. I think Mason Graham was the one taken in our mock draft, if I remember rightly. And I think, exactly what you said. I don't really recall the Jags ever making a splash. I mean, you had the hype around the Trevor Lawrence pick. You could maybe even argue the Blake Bortles pick years ago, but I don't think I've ever seen him go out and trade up for anyone this good ever in my time being a fan and watching the draft, certainly. And I was going to ask you about what you felt about where he'd play, because I thought, my thinking was originally more snaps as corner than receiver, but I'm imagine you've been tuned into the sort of the training camp so far. Is the consensus is that he'll play 50-50 or 60-40 or 70%, 30%? Like, kind of, how are they viewing? Because you can't expect him to play every single snap on both sides of the ball. You've got to give him some sort of rest along the way. Are you seeing a more on the one side than the other, or are you seeing a more equal split? How do you sort of see his snap share going between both sides of the ball? So
they're being a bit like, they're being not cagey, not the right word, but they're not kind of being very forthcoming with what they're intending to do. And if I'm honest, I don't know if they know what they're going to do yet. I think there still might be an element of kind of seeing how he gets on. But if I had to say, because he basically, if he comes out in kind of teal, he's playing on offense in train or in practice, or if he comes out in white, he's playing defense. It feels like he's coming out in teal more than he's coming out in white. So I would be leaning towards more offense than defense. But that's just it. That could be completely wrong. It just feels like when I'm kind of reading the stuff on X, that feels that that's the way it's leaning, but it's certainly not clear cut one way or another.
Yeah, and I suppose in a way it's one of the ones where you probably won't really know until week 1 of the season against the Panthers. I think that'll be when you'll probably truly know. I mean, preseason you may see him a little bit, but I don't think we'll see much of him. Like a lot of starters in the NFL, I don't think you'll see many play. Maybe a few snaps here and there, but certainly not that games they used to play preseason back in the day. You mentioned Liam Cohen before. Now, his opening press conference caused a bit of a stir on social media with the Duval chant, and we've seen other head coaches in the past, both have moments that have gone good and gone bad. But we've seen the two I can think of top of my head that have had viral moments in press conference opening ones were Dan Campbell bite the knees off and Adam Gase in the eyes. Now, they've had very different coaching careers. Campbell's gone on and helped change his Lions franchise around, whereas Adam Gase had an awful time in New York. But how are you seeing Liam Cohen? Because, he made a Duval chant, and it was a bit of a crazy thing to do. But I think the moment he starts winning games, that will change everything. And he's got a good rep. He was with the Buccaneers, helped Baker Mayfield to one of his best seasons, if not his best season of his career. So, yeah, he's got that good rep. But at the same time, a lot of coordinators go into coaching jobs, head coaching jobs, and don't perform. But then some do. So it's a real hard one to gauge. Sadly, more times than not, they don't succeed from coordinator to head coach. But then there's Sean McVay, there's Kyle Shanahan, who have succeeded making the jump. So how are you seeing Liam Cohen, and do you think he could become a good head coach and make that jump from coordinator to head coach?
I mean, as you say, it's very difficult to call. Especially at this point, because we've literally seen nothing of his team. Obviously, he's been offensive coordinator at the Bucs, and he had great success there. And I do feel like I'm excited to see his offense, because despite Doug Peterson having a reputation for being a kind of an aggressive head offensively, it really didn't feel like it at times. I felt like it was playing it very safe and too cautious. And then in other times, he would be ridiculously aggressive when the situation didn't call for it. So I'm excited to see how Liam Cohen balances it. And obviously, as you said, he had success at the Bucs. He took them into some really good. I think it was there's 5 different categories. He got into the top 5 for across the league offensively, and I feel like at times with the offense we had last year, pre the injury to Trevor Lawrence, we should have been putting up more points than we were, and just some of the offensive play calling. Obviously, it wasn't done by Doug. There was a big kind of a whole thing throughout the season. We didn't actually know who was play calling, if it was him or Press Taylor. Neither would confirm. It was strange, and it was just, I don't know. It just seemed very, very basic and very limited. And like, for example, Brian Thomas Jr. had a great breakout season, but there were times that he just wasn't being targeted. And I don't understand what kind of thinking you'd have to not be targeting a player that's playing well, that is fit, is on the field, but not utilizing him. And it was just strange things like that. So I'm excited to have a fresh start. See Liam Cohen come in. He seems excited to work with the offense. He does seem to be. He's obviously known for his offensive thinking and scheming, and especially working with QBs like you say, Baker Mayfield. He really brought out the best in him. So hoping for the same with Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, you mentioned Lawrence then. I mean, we probably said the same thing last year, or maybe even certainly a couple of years ago. One of the most hyped quarterbacks out of college, seen as one of the most NFL ready quarterbacks. It was seen as the comparisons made was Andrew Luck, and we all know what happened the first year. The Urban Meyer year is sort of like an asterisk around his career, because what quarterback was going to succeed in that tenure? I mean, it was a dreadful from all his sort of college hype and the sort of. I wrote an article on it at the time when he joined about how he's going to change the franchise. I was really buying into the Urban Meyer hype because of his time at college and how well he did, with college teams. But that was an awful time. But since then, 2022 had, one of his best years to date, over 4,000 yards, single-digit interceptions, 25 touchdowns, and still had over 4,000 yards a year later. But the season just gone was disappointing. And even you can go back to the year before where they were the 1 seed with like 5 games left to go. I remember being a friend of mine lived in Dubai for a couple of years. I went to visit him early December, end of November. And I remember I was watching the NFL on a Sunday because it was on, at a really weird time, but it was like still managed to get to watch the full red zone. But I remember I had this image of in my head seeing the playoff picture come up on my screen and seeing the Jaguars have the number 1 seed, and then that all fell apart. And Lawrence, he's had the big contract now, he's been paid, but I don't think so far he has warranted that deal. But are you expecting Liam Cohen to come in and change that? I mean, he's gone from, Urban Meyer, who was a disaster, to Doug Peterson, who, we named on our podcast when Ben Isaacs came on for top 10 worst Super Bowl winning head coaches. He was number one. Or no, he was definitely in the top three. I can't think whether it was him or Barry Schwitzer. But, he wasn't obviously, and it didn't have a great ending in Jacksonville. So are you expecting Liam Cohen to come in, fresh voice, an offensive-minded guy? Are you expecting him to just help Trevor Lawrence really fulfill that potential he had in Clemson?
Yeah, I think it will really happen. And as you mentioned, Doug, he brought us some success. So I can't completely bash the guy, but there were just it didn't feel at times that he was playing to Trevor's strengths. He had plays, for example, that were just, I don't know, like almost like trick plays, and just for no reason, and they wouldn't benefit in any way, and it just seemed completely pointless. And I'm not really sure he really had the interest of getting the best out of Trevor Lawrence. I feel at times he wanted to be seen as being very clever and kind of masterminding the victory, rather than kind of putting the faith in Lawrence's ability and playing to Trevor's talents. And I think that's how it felt through large parts, especially last season, before Trevor obviously got the big hit in the Texans game and was out for the year. So I think someone coming in, Liam Cohen coming in, who again is obviously a QB focused head coach, but also if he can, obviously he improved the Bucs run game, and obviously this is all going to benefit Lawrence in the long run. I think my main concern on the offense now is just the offensive line. We've made some additions, but I don't really know how much that's going to improve the offensive line. It wasn't good last year, and obviously, if your offensive line isn't good, it does limit what you can do moving the ball.
Yeah, I expect him to have a good time in Jacksonville. I just feel like Lawrence, it's his time now to really step up, and I think that even if it's not necessarily the best coach, I think if there's someone he's maybe not gotten the best with, I don't think him and Peterson had the best relationship. And I think even just a fresh voice, someone who isn't the guy you didn't get on with, I think that can almost, even if it's just a couple of years impact, I just feel like Liam Cohen, with how he's worked with quarterbacks before in a league that's eternally growing offensive-minded in terms of head coaches, I think that Liam Cohen, I think, will prove everyone wrong. And I think he's going to really, really excel Trevor Lawrence's game. We're moving on to our penultimate section, which is our win, loss, or tie segment. So for those of you that don't know, in this section, each fan that comes on predicts their team's overall record by going through each game and answering with a win, loss, or tie answer. Now, Lee, you came on a year ago, and the Jags went, in the end, 4-13 in 2024. Do you by chance remember what your prediction was 12 months ago?
I know I would have guessed around 10 or 11 wins, I think.
Yeah, 11-6. So, not quite what you thought it'd be. I don't think anyone thought, if I'm honest, it'd be 4-13. I think even the most brainiest NFL mind, I don't think anyone would have had you finishing with 4 wins last season.
No, and I think the thing is, I think we exchanged messages. I think week 1 we played you this year, and I think I remember you saying that you were surprised by how well we played and how good we looked, despite obviously losing to yourselves. And I felt like that was the story for the first couple of weeks. We just couldn't kind of get out of our own way, and things just seemed to keep going wrong. And then obviously, like I said, Trevor Lawrence had the huge hit to the head, which obviously ended his season. So yeah, it all just kind of fell apart. And I think 10 or 11 was probably just expecting to kind of build on the previous 2 years. I think the previous 2 years we were 9-7, 9-8. I'm trying to do the maths now. 9-8, I think, back-to-back winning seasons, which was big. So I kind of expected to kind of take another step on, but obviously it all kind of fell apart for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, that first game, I still don't know how we won that game. It was amazing how just 2 plays changed the entire narrative. You had the was it Javon Holland who did the so I can't think of who player was that's going into the end zone, and I remember there was a Javon Holland managed to get the sort of strip the ball off the Jags player and cause a turnover, and then the following play to a found Tyreek Hill and went in for a touchdown. And literally, that game was so one-sided, and out of nowhere, just 2 plays completely turned things around.
Yeah, I think it might have been ETN. I think he had an issue with ball security last year, so it might have been ETN. But yeah, it was, and yeah, there were a lot of glimpses and a lot of moments that kind of, and I suppose that's what's given me hope this season, that the players showed elements of ability. And again, back to Lawrence, you do see moments that show that he does have something a bit special, but obviously you're not going to get that on every play anyway. But then when you've got issues with ball security and poor catching rates, and offensive line play, and like I say, some strange play calling, it's never going to succeed.
No, I agree. Well, week 1 is a home game against the Carolina Panthers. Lee, win, lose, or tie?
We're going to win that one.
Okay, so then week 2, your first road game of the season, as you have a trip to Cincinnati and take on the Bengals.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't see us winning there. I think that one's a loss.
Okay, well, week 3 is a home game, and you are playing the Houston Texans.
We are due to beat the Texans in Jacksonville. I think we've had a bit of a horrid run with them. So I'm going to go for a win there.
Well, week 4 is a road game, and you're taking on the San Francisco 49ers.
Again, long. Well, that was a long trip, and obviously the 49ers are a good team. So probably go on loss on that one.
Well, week 5 is against the Kansas City Chiefs at home.
I'm going to go a bit of a straight one here. I'm going to go for a win on that one because I feel like we've come close to. We've given them some problems the last couple of years. We've just not quite been able to kind of finish them off, and I think we might just pull off a bit of a surprise on there. Okay,
so then week 6, you are taking on at home the Seattle Seahawks.
Ooh. I'm very torn on this one. This is one that could go either way. But as it's in Jacksonville, I'm going to give us the slightest edge and say we win that one.
Okay, so week 7 is in London, your annual trip to London. Only 1 game this year, not 2. First of all, what are your thoughts on that? Because I thought we were going to get 2 again for Jacksonville, but they moved it down to 1. Why do you reckon that is?
I'm purely guessing here. It wouldn't surprise me if we get a few extra Jags games over the next couple of years because of the stadium renovation. So maybe to try and keep the locals sweet in Jacksonville, they're going to limit how many games that they have over in the UK for now. And then when they actually need to potentially relocate for a period of time, they might utilize London a little bit more, and you might see 3 or 4 games in a single season.
Or I mean, that would be, do you think they would do a case where it would be just all 3 games of Jags at home? Do you think that would be the case where it's the entire 3-game slate in London just is Jags? Or can you see maybe moving a game to maybe playing in Spain or Germany? Or do you see it all being in London and maybe even 3 games, all 3 London games in Jacksonville next year?
Yeah, so I'd be surprised if they put one of our home games in Spain or Germany. If we had a road game, I think I could see them doing it, but purely because of the effort that Shad Khan has made into making UK and the London, especially the London market, Jags-centric, well, a very focused environment for the Jags. I'd be surprised they took that overseas. I think, I suppose the difficulty would be is the scheduling, purely because once they obviously convert the pitch and do the markings up for the NFL, ideally you want it to stay for the NFL for that period of time. You don't want it to be used for other things. And obviously you've got obviously October period, you normally have England internationals, and obviously any other events going on at Wembley. So I think it would be hard, but I think I could definitely see maybe back-to-back home games and then a road game at Tottenham maybe, or potentially, like you say, in another place in Europe. And like I say, I'm purely speculating, just purely because we've got the new stadium on the horizon, and they've said they are going to have to look for other locations to play at least some of the games in, if not potentially relocate for a season.
Yeah, I mean, there's talk of them using the Florida Gators Stadium as a ground for some of the games, but of course, that will also clash with the college season. They have to really work their way around that in terms of what days they're home, what days they're away. But I can certainly, I would love it if they had all their home games in London. I would be, I would love that. It would certainly be, great for the sport in the growth in the UK. But I certainly see there being at least 2 games, Jags home games. But maybe one in Tottenham, maybe 2 at Wembley, 2 at Tottenham. Maybe they'll do that this year, not this year, next year. But this year, you are home to the Rams. First of all, are you going to the game?
I'm hoping to be at the game. It's not kind of set in stone yet, but fingers crossed.
And in terms of the game itself, win, lose, or tie?
With London, I feel like we've got it down now. We've had quite good success last couple of years. We've got a pretty good win ratio, so I'm going to go win there.
Okay, so then you do have a week 8 bye. So week 9, you are on the road to the Las Vegas Raiders.
That's a lot. That's a long trip. I'm going to go for a loss on that one.
Okay, so then week 10 is a road game against the Houston Texans.
I'm going to split the Texans because I said we beat them in Jacksonville, so I'll go for a loss there as well.
So then week 11 is a team who was on our last episode in the Los Angeles Chargers at home.
Well, we've had a few losses on the bounce here, and we do seem to do okay against the Chargers, so I'm going to go for a win there.
So then week 12 is the first of 2 straight road games, and this is against the Arizona Cardinals.
I think we can win that one, yeah.
So week 13 is against the Tennessee Titans at Nissan Stadium.
It's always going to be a win against the Titans. I'm never backing us for a loss against the Titans.
Who do you see as more of your biggest rival in the AFC South? Do you see it as the Texans or the Titans or the Panthers, the Colts? Is it the Titans? I'm guessing from what you said just then that it is the Titans you maybe have a more of a rivalry with.
It's so it's the Titans I'd say for a majority of Jags fans, and I would have previously said it was the Colts next, but like I say, I don't know if you recall it, but the incident with Trevor last year, taking the dirty hit to the head against the Texans, and then them kind of not being, I suppose, very apologetic or not really showing an awful lot of sympathy, really, and being quite disrespectful following it, I think has probably turned the tide a bit. So I think a few more now would say Texans than they did before, but I think the main one is still Titans.
Okay, so then week 14 is a home game, and this is against the Indianapolis Colts.
Not sure what to expect from the Colts because I believe, is it Anthony Richardson? Is he hurt?
Yeah, don't know how serious it is in terms of by the time week 14 comes, but I think certainly for that first few weeks, I think it is going to be Daniel Jones. But then come week 14, I think that's anyone's guess because I think Richardson is not going enough to warrant that start.
Yeah, I'll go for a win. I'll go for a win against the Colts. I'll split the Colts.
Okay, well, this one, week 15, is my now seemingly daily edition of my bowl nicknames for certain games. I'm trying to give each one game per team season preview a nickname, a bowl. I'm calling Week 15 the Sugar Bowl, as you take on Justin Fields as Trevor Lawrence and Fields reunite their Sugar Bowl classic all those years ago in college. Win, lose, or tie?
We'll go for a win.
Okay, so then Week 16, you are on the road, the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, the Broncos, I feel like on my high, it's the difficult place to go, the altitude and distance. So I'm going to go for a loss, but I think that's one of the ones that could go either way.
Well, Week 17, your final road game of the season, going from one horse team to another horse team as you take on the Colts.
I'll go for a loss on that one because I said I'll split the Colts. So yeah.
Well, Week 18 is a home game against the Tennessee Titans for the final time this episode. Lee, win, lose, or tie?
Titans against has got to be a win.
Fair enough. Well, that is once again 11-6.
Okay, so that's yeah. It sounds a lot more than I'd expect this in my head, but when you break it down, yeah, I'll take it. If we can get that for the season, I'll be over the moon. I think realistically, I'm more hoping for us to kind of just, especially the first season of Liam Cohen, kind of get over the finishing line with a winning record, maybe like a 9-8 season. But yeah, 11, I'll be over the moon.
And then with that record, you get into the playoffs. How far would you go in the postseason?
So I think we could, if we got to the playoffs, I think we're definitely capable of winning one game. So depending on where we get there and what ranking we achieve, I think we could either win a wild card round, but I think that's as far as we'd go at this stage. It's still very early days. I don't think we'd get much further than that. I think the hype just from achieving the playoffs in Liam Cohen's first season might be enough to kind of just get us that one win.
So let's head to our final segment, which will be our Fan Asks Fan section. So in this section, there's a new segment to our off-season season preview episodes. Each fan that comes on asks the next guest a question, whilst also answering a question from the previous guest. So Lee, our previous guest, also called Lee Wakefield, came on for the Chargers season preview, and he wanted to ask you, Lee, which day 3 starter in your team do you see making the biggest splash? Now, day 3 starters, you've got 4. You've got Jalen McLeod, the linebacker, Raekwon Lane, the third, the safety, Jonah Monheim, the center, and LeQuint Allen, running back. I realize I've given you this question on the spot, but out of those 4, who are you predicting to have the biggest splash?
I think I'm going to go. If I'm honest, I haven't done an awful lot of kind of research into the kind of the day 3 picks there, but Ryan, I think it's Ryan Lane the third, the safety. Number 1, because the safety room is in need, so I'm hoping for that. But also, secondly, because that is the pick that my friend Jamie Phillips got to make on the draft stage, as he was one International Fan of the Year for the Jaguars. So he got taken out to the draft, and he got to announce that pick. So I think for him as well, that it would be cool if the player actually kind of was successful and kind of made the roster and had an impact.
Well, hopefully for Jamie's sake, that does come true. Now, Lee, it's time for you to ask our next team season preview guest a question.
Okay, so I think my question is, obviously being a Jaguars fan, we're quite often kind of underestimated, and the few years we have had success, we've kind of come out of nowhere. This season, which team do you expect to kind of come out of nowhere that no one's expecting to have a good year, that will surprise a lot of people and maybe make the postseason?
Interesting. I like that question. Now, going to try and look at who I've got next on the next day. Now, yeah, I don't think this person will say their team will be making a splash, because I think this team's already got high expectations. But certainly, I've been intrigued to know who they say as their team who will surprise everyone. But there we are. That is where we will end this episode for today. So, Lee, first of all, thank you for coming on.
No worries at all. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, always a pleasure. Always good to have you on. And I've had the pleasure now of seeing you a few times in person over the last couple of years. So hopefully I'll be seeing you again in the next few months. But in the meantime, this has been the Across the Pod NFL Podcast 2025 season preview with your host, as always, myself, Andy Davis, with our guest today, Lee White. And we'll see you guys for our next team's season preview. See you then.